Welcome. I'm Pat Croce, and this is American Cancer Society's Heal Community Movement. It's a gathering of all of us who've been touched by cancer or who have been touched by someone who has been touched by cancer. And I'm psyched to have you today. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors, 6ABC, our leadership partners, and each and every one of you who went to acshealed.com and donated anywhere between $25 and $2,500. Thank you. Thank you. And for all of you who are new, just joining us today, and if you haven't registered, go to acshealed.com. Now, before I introduce our guest today, and we have great guests, you're going to enjoy these two individuals. You know, there's an old Yiddish saying, man plans and God laughs. Well, I had planned yesterday to leave here at Meditation Hill and go to our home in Villanova. I had a doctor's appointment, a dermatologist. A couple of weeks ago, I had a couple spots that she took biopsies from, and she said, I got to come back. It's a basal cell carcinoma, and I've had a dozen, at least, basal cell carcinomas, squamous cell carcinomas, all cut off, stitches here, stitches there. This one happens to be below a wound I have on my left shin, just 3 inches above my ankle. So let me take you back to 1999. The 76ers, the team I was running, it was my third year as president, and it was our first year we made the playoffs, and it was the end of an 8-year drought for the Sixers organization. We won the first round. We lost the second round to the Indiana Pacers. Reggie Miller was just on fire from that three-point line. But the city of Philadelphia was on fire. They were so excited that the 76ers were revived from the basement dwellers of a team back up close to the penthouse. And so I was walking on water. 2 weeks later, I couldn't even walk. I was taking a motorcycle trip with 5 of my buddies on bikes and 2 in an RV to go across country, touch the Atlantic Ocean down at Ocean City, touch the Pacific Ocean by Croce's Bar and Restaurant in San Diego. We never get out of New Jersey. It's raining. I pull under an overpass, and these big Harleys were pulling over to the side, and we brought one rookie with us who lost it in the rain and slid right through me as I'm dismounting, and his highway peg cut my foot right off. I'm sitting in the middle of the rain again thinking, what happened? My boot's off and I'm getting wet. I don't feel anything. I pick up my boot and I see my foot still inside it. Well, I had great surgeons, Dr. DeLong and Dr. David Lowe was the plastic surgeon who took a part of my shoulder and put it down there. It looks like someone took a cheeseburger and stapled it, and it works. It works. I may not be able to go side to side, but I can dance and I could walk and I could strut. Unfortunately, I didn't know, and I was informed yesterday, that basal cell carcinomas love to spread along scar tissue. And that's exactly what this little carcinoma did. It kind of just spread. And so I went through a Mohs procedure where they take a part off and they go, you wait there for half an hour, and they come back and say, nope, we got to take a little bit more. And they come back and they take a little bit more, Dr. Capriati. And then when it was all clean, she had a Dr. Gowan come in, the plastic surgeon, to stitch me up. Well, down below this hamburger patty on my shin, there's no skin. The skin is so tight. So she couldn't. So she said, Pat, we can either do a skin graft, I said, skin graft, or we just close it up just with dressing and take some antibiotics and do it. I said, fine. I was a trainer, a physical therapist. I could tape it up. Well, by the time I get home after the pharmacy, my sock's red. And my wife goes, you better go back. You better see the doctor. I said, it's only blood. She goes, no. I take a picture. I send it in. She goes, come on back. And I was the only one there. The Dr. Gowan was still in the office. I go back. She takes that cauterizing tool and starts. She goes, you want Novocaine? I said, no, I'll meditate. Just, well, I'm here. So that was my little escapade yesterday. And the takeaway for all of you is make sure you see a dermatologist at least once a year. Please, I go twice a year. Every year she burns off with that cold gun I think I'm dealing with Doc Holliday, and she's just burning off little nodules, but they don't turn into anything bigger. And if she sees something that looks unusual, or I do and I share it with her, well, they take a little biopsy and it comes back. Last time I saw her in October, T-cell lymphoma. This time was just only a basal cell carcinoma, but it could have spread and become a big old defect in my ankle. So go and see your dermatologist. What a great doctor I have. And speaking of great doctors, I got to admit, one of my favorite of all MDs on the planet, Dr. Nick DeNubli. Dr. Nick DeNubli, he has such a vitae. I'm just going to make it brief, but he's an orthopedic surgeon with a specialty in sports medicine. He's got a best-selling book called Framework and a series of wellness books. He's been a producer, executive producer, and host of award-winning national PBS television special, Your Body's Framework. He served as orthopedic consultant, always to the Pennsylvania Ballet, but for me, to the 76ers. This was our team doc. So just imagine, those guys you see during that time I was talking about, 99 and 2000 and 2001, Dr. Nick, we call him affectionately, was on the sideline. He was appointed special advisor to the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports, the first Bush administration, with his buddy Arnold Schwarzenegger as the chairman. He'd advised 2 U.S. presidents on matters of health and health policy. And I know he's cared for all kinds of athletes and celebrities. He's the vice president of the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and chief medical advisor for the American Council on Exercise. I mean, he's helped to contribute to the Surgeon General's report on physical activity and health. What better guest than when we talk about health? Health and energy through active living every day is someone who set the protocols. But before I let him go, before I even bring him to you, he was chosen as best doctor in America, also News and World Report's top doctor, blogs for the Huffington Post, the training room blog for Yahoo Health, and over the years, Men's Fitness, Muscle and Fitness. You can see him, and I follow him on Twitter at Dr. Nick, at Dr. Nick USA. And he's one of the social influencers, top 100 social influencers in the United States. So he knows social media, but more importantly, throw all that away. I'm telling you, in my book, he gets the award for the best, what would you call it? When you go in and see your doctor and they don't really care about you, this guy's bedside manner is platinum. He's treated many of my karate injuries over the past 40 years. And I can only tell you that my wife, Diane, blew out her knee, her cruciate ligament playing tennis. And who put it back together? Our guest, Dr. Nick DeNubli. Hello, Dr. Nick.
Hey, Pat, thank you for that really, really kind introduction. And I am so thrilled to be part of this. This is so amazing. I've watched the last 2 weeks. The information is phenomenal. It is outstanding. Dr. Erica was the physician, the PhD in exercise physiology. Kristen last week, exercise nutrition. Mike Schmidt, Laura, who we worked with, Laura, really, really outstanding, first class. I'm learning stuff there, and I'm getting motivated, and I got to go get my skin checked.
Do you get your skin checked?
I should. I'm Italian.
No. Wait. No, that wasn't an answer to my question. Do you get your skin checked?
Not lately.
Nicky, Dr. Nick, I'm going to say, I call him Nicky.
You'll come after me, I know.
No, Dr. Nick, please, when you have light skin like us, any one of those little blemishes, and it could be, I'm lucky, mine are only squamous cell or basal cells, but Laura Price, as she said last week, was melanoma. And that's malignant. That has a quick poof right into your organs, your lymph nodes. It can go anywhere. But now that you know you have to go,
I'm going.
Check.
I'm going.
I want to ask, why orthopedics? All the years I've known you, and you've given me such great insights and suggestions and input, not only in my health, but in my businesses in the past. Why did you select orthopedics?
Well, since I was little, I always wanted to be a surgeon. I knew that. Just one of those things, from when I was a little kid. When I had to start making decisions in medical school, my uncle was an orthopedic surgeon. I learned from him a lot, and I had it narrowed down to three things: neurosurgery, because I was fascinated with the brain, and that that's a side interest of mine, creativity and the way the brain works and how it influences health. I think that's a big, I'm a rare orthopedic surgeon that looks at that mind body connection that we'll go into later. But I like neurosurgery. I like plastic surgery because I thought it was artistic. But when I was at Penn in my training, I was going to be a hand surgeon, which is a subspecialty of orthopedics. And this new field that you and I grew up on when we first met, really, remember our
Oh,
early
totally. 1980.
sports medicine came on the scene. Only a handful of people were doing it around the nation. And because of my lifelong interest in sports and fitness, I thought, wow, you could work with athletes. You're dealing with exercise, fitness, motivation. It really just put everything together for me. So my path to that was orthopedics. And so I don't do traditional orthopedics. I do more sports medicine and mostly knees, but I like that whole working with active, fit, healthy people. And for those who aren't that, trying to get them to take that path in life, which is important.
So you jumped over that creativity, the brain and activity. Go back to that. What interests you relative to our cognitive behavior and our physical activity?
Well, the ancient Greeks, and I'm sure people before that were aware of this, but the ancient Greeks really put it on the map, the connection of mind and body. I mean, it is absolute. And we always thought that 20, 30 years ago. We now have science behind the fact that the mind affects how you heal, how you feel, um, how you recover. You're the perfect example of this. You're the poster boy. Go back to that. You didn't tell the whole story about that. You were sidelined. You're an active guy doing martial arts, working out every day, pushing your body to the max, staying healthy. And all of a sudden, you almost lost your leg. You remember, I got the call. You called me from the ambulance. Is this the right place to go? Because you were heading towards, and you fortunately wound up with one of the top physicians in the world for that. So, but in your recovery, who was the guy not saying, oh, I can't do this anymore, I can't do that anymore? You're saying, what can I do? And you were pushing everybody. Who's the guy going down the boardwalk? You came up with this crazy bicycle to work out every day, right? Did you not? And
No, I did. It was a paraplegic bicycle where you use your arms because I couldn't use my legs. And so you pedal with your arms.
and you went up and down the Ocean City boardwalk. You lifted weights. And you know, I think especially for people with cancer, where they're not feeling so well sometimes, they're anxious, they're nervous. The mind and the body is so important there because, and this is something I've thought about recently, especially preparing for this, is that they work in unison and sometimes beautifully together, but other times one is not doing so well, but the other one will prop it up. If the body's not feeling great, the mind can bring that up. But if you start getting anxious and depressed, you work out the body and it influences the mind. So it's so important, I think, when you're healing to have that. And in the PBS special, one of the things that got the most response from afterwards from audience and from letters that I got and emails that I got is I said that, sometimes I walk into a room with a patient and in 2 or 3 seconds, I know what the diagnosis is, but there's something in my heart that says, I don't think I can help this patient because I know there's more baggage there. There's stuff that I can't unpack from them. I can fix the physical side, but they have other things that they're going to have to address if they want optimal results, optimal healing. And I'm one who's kind of sensitive to that, maybe because the way you and I were brought up, we were people were always taught to listen and respect people and listen to people. And I try to do that with my patients, but you learn a little more about them. It's not just an MRI that you're treating. It's not just a knee that you're treating. You learn a little bit about the patient and you realize that, it's going to influence how they do. And I think that's especially true with cancer. It's so hard too. It's a war, it's a battle, it's a war, and you're fighting it on multiple levels. Your mind is fighting it, your body's fighting it, and you're getting hit from all aspects. You might not feel great on it on a certain day. You might feel weaker. You don't want to get up and take a walk. You don't want to lift those little weights or do the bands, understandably, because you don't feel well. But we'll talk about that, how all that impacts, fitness and health. We now know for sure it prevents numerous cancers. At least 13 cancers are improved by better physical fitness, physical activity, nutrition, lifestyle. We know that now. Not only does it prevent it, but it also helps with the treatment. It's essential part of the treatment, but challenging. You got to be creative, maybe like you are. You are as creative as could be. What, don't look at the things that I can't do. What can I do? How do I try to maintain fitness in this body that is being ravaged in some ways? Does that make sense?
Oh, totally, totally, Dr. Nick. Tell us now, talking about cancer patients or even the families and friends of cancer patients, because the advice you give is for everybody, everybody. What is the difference in those you took care of, the pro basketball players, the Pennsylvania ballerinas? What would you say the secret of their longevity or their returning back from injury?
Well, again, I'd have to go back to mind and body. Remember, these are elite individuals, right? They've been tested. They've made it to the summit. So there's genetics involved. There's other things involved. They work hard, but I really believe the ones who do the best, and the thing that fascinates me about them is that um, the positive mindset. They all
Mm.
have that to succeed. They have to have that, and they have rich physiology. They work hard at it. I tell my young patients who want to, you fix their knee 2 weeks later. I feel good. Why can't I play? I said, you don't realize the pros, you see them go out for the game, they run out and they play. And I say, Michael Jordan, for every minute he was on the court, I'll bet he spent hours in the gym preparing his body for that, right? So they work hard, they work day and night, they learn what they do, proper nutrition, most of them proper nutrition. I mean, we've seen some where they don't always eat well, they're young, they can get away with it, but nutrition, mindset, rich physiology, working out hard, and it's amazing. And with the pro athletes, I think what carries over, we've learned from sports medicine to apply the way we treat athletes to how we treat injured workers, to elderly people with hip fractures. We don't keep people in bed anymore. We don't put people in casts anymore. We don't immobilize. Motion is lotion. You got to keep moving. Thomas Curidan, exercise physiologist of the past, had a great line. The human body is the only machine that breaks down when not used. So, and pro athletes know this. When they're hurt, they're looking at, how do I keep everything going without harming the injury? I don't want to do harm, but I want everything else working 100% when that injury gets to 100%. So, and it's the same model you can use with cancer patients. You don't wait for the cancer to be gone to say, okay, let's try to patch everything back together, because especially cancer striking people the second half of their life or elderly, they're already in some decline. We lose muscle mass after the age of 30 or 40. We start losing bone after the age of 30, 40. The body will decline if you're not actively doing things to work it. So what we learn from the pro athletes is how to make all this work. And the one other thing I will say that I've learned with pro athletes, and you'll know this, the difference between hurt and harm. That's an important thing. So you might not be feeling good or something might be hurting, but Allen Iverson was the example of this. If he knew okay, am I going to make it worse? No. You're all beat up, you're bruised, you got bruises all over your body, but is there any harm in me going out there? Am I going to harm it more? No. As long as he knew there was no harm, he could put up with the hurt. And sometimes if you put up with the hurt a little bit, again, you get the positive feedback in your brain because you're doing the things you want to do, your body's repairing itself, and it works. So I've learned a lot from athletes.
Dr. Nick, I love motion is the lotion. In physical therapy, we used to say if it's physical, it's therapy. And I love this, hurt or harm. If it's hurt, but you're not going to do harm, then you still have the green light. Now, speaking of celebrities, presidents, pro athletes, who is the most memorable person that you took care of?
Wow. Besides my friend Pat Croce,
No,
let's
no.
see. um, Probably helping out Arnold Schwarzenegger with a bunch of things.
Now,
over the
why would
years. I
he
mean,
be
Arnold is,
like
he's,
what in him, body, mind, and spirit, was manifested with what you shared with him?
he exemplifies everything I said. He's forward thinking, doesn't spend time in the past. He'll look at the past just to learn, but he's always, what's the solution? He surrounds himself by with the best people. He listens, and then he makes a commitment, and he's forward. And that's how he's done everything from being the governor to being a movie star. He came over here. He couldn't speak English. He had no money. He had a big name. People said he would fail, and he just never believed anybody. He puts his mind to something, and he was one of the first. If you read some of his original book, Pumping Iron, he talked about the role the mind plays in even building muscle, that you concentrate on a muscle as you're working it. And he thought he could bring blood supply to that muscle. People thought he was crazy. Now we know with biofeedback studies that that the mind meditation can change the way blood flows. It can impact it. Your mind can impact your body. It's what we've been saying all along. So Arnold, and he's just so positive and, again, bigger than life kind of guy, and fun, a lot of fun.
So, Dr. Nick, you talked about meditation and mindfulness. How during surgery, most of us here in this gathering have never been in surgery on your end of the table. How do you do what you do when you're doing it? Like, what is your, I'm not going to call it state of mind, because I don't know if there is a state of mind, or you just are in the flow. Share with us.
Well, it all starts with great training. I mean, you get great training, which I had at Penn and Temple Med School and University of Penn orthopedics. And so you come out with a certain confidence, and it's a lifelong learning process. You get a great team, which I have in the OR, and you work with the same team, and you have certain expectations of them, of their knowledge base, and they get to know your routines, and it works. And, getting back to meditate, I mean, when I was younger, as you know, I did a lot of martial arts and Tai Chi, and even some yoga way back, and learned some breathing techniques that I've used my whole life. And almost before every surgery to this day, I still take that moment to just be in the moment and calm my body, calm my thought processes. It's usually at the scrub sink when you have a few minutes by yourself and you're scrubbing, that you can just get in that mindset, and your focus is on that and that alone, and you are not thinking of anything else. And it's interesting, I've had my share of aches and pains over the years. There's not a day that I wake up without something hurting, bad back, bad knee. And there's times where my back is really hurting, and I'll go to surgery, and when I finish the surgery, I realize my back pain is gone. I mean, I'll have it for 3 days, and the harder the case, the more likely I am. And am I able to let go of that kind of pain? And again, it tells you the power of the mind, that you get so focused on a job. And this is why people have injuries and feel that they can't do anything and they need to stay home, or they can't work. I don't say go out and hurt yourself, but I'm saying be productive, start doing things, and you'd be surprised how the body will respond to that. And never put yourself in harm's way. I'm not trying to give that message, but push yourself a little bit, push your body a little bit. And this is the same with fitness programs. You got to have a well-rounded program that includes cardiovascular, exercise, strength training, flexibility, balance, especially as we age. And these are things so important for cancer patients. My father-in-law just went through a rough year with cancer, and he passed last week with a blood cancer. Tremendous care. He lived way longer than they thought he was going to. But I was able to firsthand see the struggles and not feeling so good. And each day he doesn't feel he could do as much, but then willingness to, okay, here's some bands, here's some little weights, take a little walk. I know you can't go for like you used to do, where you're chopping trees down up in the mountains and you're riding your ATV, but just get up and move. Being sedentary is terrible, especially for people who have illness. We know for healthy people, being sedentary is akin to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. We've learned from COVID that, healthier people, more fit people, not only are you less likely to get COVID, but if you get it, you're less likely to die or be hospitalized or wind up in an ICU. That data is already out. We know that clearly from a couple of big studies. And it shows you the impact of your lifestyle in prevention. It should have been a wake up. Obesity, we saw what happened with obesity and COVID. If somebody was obese, they were, I think it was numerous times more likely to wind up in an ICU and to die of COVID than people who were lean or fit. So even going into it, the fitness helps. So from cancer, this works. Exercise, fitness boosts immunity. Absolutely, we know it boosts immunity. Obesity interferes with immunity. People who are fit get a better response even from the vaccine, believe it or not. So you're constantly having to do this. And as I said earlier, when you have cancer and you're not feeling well, it's a challenge. You have to ask the questions, find the right people to help you do this. Be creative about it, like you were. Be very creative of how can I do this? What are the things I can do? Focus on that, not the things you can't do, because it can be very depressing. And once you get moving a little, you might find that some of that depression will go away.
I hope everyone's listening to Dr. Nick, and I'd love to just talk to you for the whole hour. So please stay, Dr. Nick, because I want you, if you have any questions for our next guest, and there may be questions from our community that we're going to handle toward the end of the gathering. But thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Just hang on there, though. Before we go to our next guest, 2 weeks ago, I told everyone that they should have a thermos of cold water with them. I usually drink 16 ounces 3 times a day during my meals. I force water during my meals. Maybe a glass of wine before the third meal, but nevertheless, or 2, nevertheless, water. But I always fill this. I fill this thermos so that I have that extra hydration. Remember, health and energy through active living every day. Exactly what Dr. Nick was talking about. But energy, hydration is a form of energy. So today, I'm bringing in more props. Apple. This is my 10 o'clock apple. This little 3-inch red sphere has about 95 good calories, complex carbohydrates, 4.5 grams of fiber, pectin in the skin, soluble fiber inside. So it can lower your blood cholesterol, and the skin on the outside can help your bowel movements, that fiber, and can be an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory for your systems, your immune systems. Now, if you take that 95 calories and just take a tablespoon, just a tablespoon of peanut butter and put it next door, and you cut this baby, but eat the skin, don't take the skin off, and dip it in the peanut butter, a tablespoon of natural, fresh roasted peanut butter, there might be a little salt in there, is 100 calories, 8 grams of protein. So you're getting vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber, protein for less than 200 calories, and way less and more nutritious than a glazed donut. A glazed donut's like 250, 300 calories. So this is your apple a day with your water every day. That's your energy tip for today. And now, speaking of energy, we got a young blood here who's real energy. His name is Aramis Kuzin. And Aramis, I remember the name because of the 3 Musketeers, Aramis, Porthos, and Athos. And so I'll tell you, we will tell you how we met each other recently, most recently, but let me give you a little bio. Aramis is from Canada, but he went to Penn. And his first year at Penn, he was playing soccer, and I assume the eyes of the world were on him, and the pros picked him up. So he's a pro footballer, not just a soccer player. He was recruited as a football player. And what is more remarkable is that he thought he had an injury that Dr. Nick, who wasn't his doctor at the time, would say, well, let's look at this further. And his doctors said the same thing. Aramis, come on to our community gathering. How are you?
Hi, Pat. How are you?
I'm great. Where are you right now?
I'm currently in Teested in Denmark, so right by the Atlantic Ocean.
And what time is it?
It's 6:30 at night.
And what's the temperature there?
I couldn't tell you in Fahrenheit. If anyone knows Celsius, it's about 12 degrees Celsius.
Okay, so my Celsius to Fahrenheit equation was double the degrees and add 30. So 24. So it's like 50, 54.
Yeah, about that.
That was
It's a
just a
little
rough
chilly
guess.
with the wind. It's-
So Aramis and I, we live in Villanova in the same little development. Never saw Aramis except for this one day. I think it was December Aramis, somewhere around there.
yeah, it was around there.
Because I know I was undergoing radiation at the time on my
Yeah.
chest, and you're walking a dog, I'm walking two dogs, and we cross in this little park. And what kind of dog is Kobe?
I got a little corgi.
Now, and so I say hi to him, and my dogs are sniffing his dog, and his dog's barking at my dogs. And I said, "What's your dog's name?" He said, "Kobe." I said, "Like Kobe Bryant?" He said, "Yeah." So we started talking about basketball. And then I said, "Do you play basketball?" He says, "No, I play soccer." I said, "Oh," so I'm thinking he plays club soccer. I said, "Who for?" He said, "Who do you play soccer for?"
Well, at the time, I had been playing soccer with, or football, I should say, with Aalborg over here in Denmark, in the top, in the highest level that you can play here in Denmark. Before my diagnosis.
So before you get to the diagnosis, what position do you play in football?
So I'm a forward, like a striker.
So you score.
That's my job.
Now, are you fast?
I wouldn't say I'm particularly fast. I can be fast, but my strengths are more with my mind. I kind of think a little bit differently than maybe many players. So I evaluate the game a little differently and find myself in the right position at the right time. More
Well,
of like a
no.
finesse
Tell us,
player.
tell us about that. How do you think differently?
Um, it's more so an instinct. I can't really say about anything else, but I guess I just kind of see space a little bit differently. So I'm trying to think of maybe a basketball player to compare it to, but you can think of maybe one of these like European guys kind of that comes over, maybe like a Luka Doncic. He's not like the most athletic player in the world, but he kind of knows how to pick his spots well, and he knows how to be in the right place at the right time.
Aramis, you talking like that, the first name that comes to my mind is Wayne Gretzky, because Wayne Gretzky always knew where to be, not where the puck was going, but where it would go, where it would end up. He had
Yeah.
this sixth sense, seventh sense that he knew, as you say, the space between the movements.
I'm not gonna go ahead and compare myself to Wayne Gretzky, but yeah, it's I guess a similar concept.
So what was it your play at Penn that attracted the pros?
It was actually a lot of luck. So it wasn't really my play at Penn. Actually, it was there was just a spring break, and I had been training pretty well at the time with the college, and it was my freshman year. So my grandfather, who is from Ukraine, and he lived there at the time. I asked him if he could maybe help me just find some kind of training during spring break, in and around Ukraine, that maybe I could go there and just have, maybe a higher level kind of experience before, coming back and finishing out the year with Penn. And I went there, and I got this opportunity through my dad's old basketball coach who knew a guy who knew a guy. And as at some point, I just kind of wound up at this club in the second division there. And I played really well during the week that I was there. And actually, by the end of that week, they offered me a contract. So then I had to kind of deliberate for the next number of months, decide, do I go to the second division club in Ukraine and, try and pursue this dream, or do I stay at Penn and, finish out my degree and everything like that. And, at the end of the day, I decided that, Penn kind of will always be there. So let me try and take this as far as I can. And then I went from the second division to the first division in Ukraine. And then I went from the first division all the way to Denmark. So just kind of happened like that.
That's beautiful. So that's not luck. That's the universe unfolding perfectly for you. Even though it may not be, we see it before us. Many people complain that the universe acts to me instead of
Right.
for me. You see how it's unfolded for you, but then with a turn of events, you get injured. How did you get injured?
Yeah. So I had just signed in Denmark. It was I remember all the dates very specifically. March 1st, my contract started. March 10th, I'm supposed to play my first game with the club. And
Of 2000, of
2020.
20.
2020. So March 1st, March 9th, the Danish government shuts everything down because of COVID. So no one's allowed, no gatherings, and Denmark did it very seriously. So it was no gatherings of more than 5 people. Absolutely no training, nothing like that. We weren't allowed to do anything. Everything was done inside of our like homes, basically, or by ourselves. So I started training a lot by myself to, prepare, because they were saying, be ready at any point. The season could just come back. Nobody really knew what was going on. And I start feeling this pain in my leg. And I've always been someone that kind of just, I can deal with a little bit of pain. I won't go to the doctor immediately. I'll try and play through it. But this pain started getting worse and worse. So eventually I go to the doctor, I sit out for a week, I come back, there's more pain. We do an ultrasound that reveals maybe like a little bit of a stress kind of on the muscle there. So, I stay out again, and then I come back again a week later, more pain, like even more than the first time. So it's kind of really strange. We go do one MRI. They really can't see anything on the MRI. So they just say, take a couple weeks out. And literally one morning I woke up in bed, I stretched out, and I feel a pop in my leg. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like, well, that's the first thing I'm thinking is that's the end of my season. Like I thought maybe I had just torn a muscle or something. I speak with the club, and I'm like, listen, I'm going to go back to the States and see a friend of ours, actually, Joe Zarrett, a local physical therapist in Philadelphia that treats a lot of athletes, and he's treated me for a long time. And he told me to go and see this one doctor, Dr. Rodell. So I went to see the doctor, and he specializes kind of with ultrasounds and everything. And he was the first one to look at my leg and go, there's actually no problem with your muscle. It's something with your bone. And then it just kind of from there on developed.
And then what tests were prescribed?
So I then ended up getting a biopsy done. We got I believe we did a CAT scan first, or maybe a PET scan, one of those scans. We did one of those. They finally started to notice something in the bone after Dr. Odell indicated to the team of doctors that I kind of had at the time looking at me that it's something with the bone, it's not with the muscle. And then they told me that they believed I had a benign tumor in my leg and that I would just get a biopsy and they were going to ablate it, I guess, just to like burn it off. So I show up to the day of the biopsy and I go in and I'm lying down in the bed, and literally right before I get wheeled into the operating room, the radiologist that was going to do the biopsy comes to me and goes, by the way, we're not entirely sure that this is a benign tumor. So we're just going to do the initial biopsy. And if the cells come back and tell us that, yeah, it's benign, then we're going to go ahead and burn it off. Otherwise, I'm not going to touch it. So, I go under with the anesthesia. And then when I woke up, it was a very, very strange feeling. So I somehow immediately knew that something was wrong and that they hadn't done anything with my leg, that they hadn't burned anything off. I just felt like something was wrong. And before the doctor had even come in, it's very strange. I had this sixth sense that he was going to say cancer. I don't know why, but it was just this strange feeling kind of.
And how were you diagnosed?
So by how you mean, like with what?
Well, Ewing sarcoma. Who told you that that's what the
Yeah,
diagnosis
so
was?
the radiologist came to me and he said, there's something really aggressive in your leg. And he was really saddened. And I'm like, doc, give it to me straight. Is it cancer? He's like, I think it is. So then we waited, and after the biopsy results came back, I got diagnosed by Dr. Weber, who was my orthopedic oncologist at the time, and who saw the rest of kind of my treatment. And she was the one that confirmed that it was a Ewing sarcoma, like a bone cancer in my femur.
Is it your right or left leg?
My right leg.
And did they operate on it?
Yeah. So I had chemotherapy, which was to, I guess, kill any of the potential cells that could be lingering, through the bloodstream, and also to make the actual location of the initial cancer in my leg smaller. Then I had radiation therapy on top of that midway through my chemo to then kill the cancer that's in my leg. And then I had a metal rod surgery. So I had a titanium rod inserted into my femur because radiation makes your bone very brittle after a couple of years, and it becomes at risk of fracture, especially for a high level athlete. So they said, put this rod in, you'll just have it in for life, and your leg will be stable, and you'll be good to go then.
And then you started on rehab, correct?
Yeah, and then I started a really, really painful, kind of a frustrating rehab process.
What made it frustrating?
Um, Part of what made it frustrating was, I had expected my recovery time to be less. When I had been kind of talking with my doctor, I think she was trying to keep my hopes up and tell me that my recovery time wasn't going to be as long as I thought it was going to be, because she knew that, this cancer to me, it was more of it was a challenge. It was something I was just trying to beat this and get back to playing football. It wasn't like I was thinking like, how will this affect my life afterwards? I treated it like another injury. And so for me, it was just all like a process of rehabilitation, just maybe a little bit stranger than others. And so I had thought that it would maybe take, half a month after I had had the surgery done, because it's kind of what I was led to believe. And then when I woke up from the surgery, I see that my leg has absolutely no muscle. The muscles had just completely clamped around my bone. I guess because like there's like an invasion into the body, so it's trying to protect everything. So I basically lost the entire muscle in my leg, and I had to relearn how to walk, relearn how to run, and all of that stuff.
You had to relearn how to run.
Yeah, basically, because my leg wasn't it wasn't used to it. The muscle wasn't activating at all. So it was an extremely painful process of walking, trying to keep my body straight, and then eventually turning that into running and trying to keep the body straight up, and making sure that the leg will hold me up when I bounce on it.
And right now it's holding you up. You're bouncing and
Yeah,
running.
right now I'm training every day, 2-3 times a day, in the gym. I'm lifting. So yeah.
Any side effects?
No, none really. I had a really good, again, I worked with Joe. Joe is probably one of the best physical therapists in the country, honestly, and he put me on a really aggressive um, recovery process. And I worked with doctors, and a lot of it comes down to just mentally, like, are you comfortable being out there? And for me, it's not even a second thought. It's just, I'm out there, I'm playing. I won't even think about anything that bothers me.
By the way, Joe Zarad, the physical therapist who was dealing with you, he's part of this community, just so you know. He has donated at ACS Healed, and maybe because of you. Maybe that's why. But let me ask you this. You said, just like Dr. Nick was talking about, that mentally you took it not as a problem, but as a challenge that you had to deal with in the present moment. Okay,
Yeah.
here's what I have to do. It's not, oh me, oh my. It's
No.
Here's what I have to do.
Exactly.
And you took it on that challenge. Where did you get that attitude?
Oh, I've always kind of had that attitude, mainly because I wasn't when I was very young, I was I had an ability in football that was kind of recognized by others, but by the age of 13, 14, I was kind of overtaken by a lot of my peers in terms of talent, and in terms of the better teams in the area. I was rejected by a lot of them, so I always had to kind of fight my way through life, and through everything. And honestly, I had a very difficult 2 years in Ukraine. It was a lot of struggling, and a lot of kind of fighting for my spot on the couple teams that I was at. And I had to be extremely, extremely mentally tough to make it through all of that. So to be honest, the cancer, when I was joking with my family, like pretty immediately, like if this is even half as bad as the last couple of years, then this is going to be easy. This is no problem.
I love it. I love that attitude. So how are you playing right now?
I think I'm playing pretty well right now. I mean, last weekend I played in my second game since coming back. Basically, I only played 45 minutes, but I scored 5 goals in one half. So I think I'm ready to kind of step it up to the next level. Now I'm not back at the highest level yet. I'm training kind of with a lower level team, just to bring myself back up right now. But I'm hoping that this summer everything changes and I'll go back to
I would think Aramis at 5 goals might raise some eyebrows.
We'll see.
So one last question before I bring Dr. Nick back, and both of you, he might have a question for you, but there may be questions from our community. Is there any fear lingering in that strong mind of yours while you're playing?
None whatsoever. It is total 100% confidence that not only have I killed this cancer, but that I'm now back and I'm going to be stronger and better than I was before. Like there were a lot of people that were kind of questioning whether I'd be even able to go back to playing football. There were a lot of people questioning whether I was going back too soon, like, you know, only 2 months after surgery and 1 month after I'm off crutches. But it's just, it's total pure confidence and motivation to just, not to prove anybody wrong or anything like that, but just to prove myself right, that this is what I'm supposed to do and that I'm ready for any challenge that's put in front of me.
Aramis, you are a poster boy for ACS Healed. And make sure when you get your bracelet, this green bead signifies you. You are a great role model for us all. So stick around, stay around.
Okay.
Diana, Dr. Nick, do we have any questions from the community?
Yes, Pat, we actually do have some questions.
Diana, your video's not on.
Okay. I'm not sure it can be on. Oh, there we go. There we go. Hi there. Our first question is for Dr. Nick. So how do you help the average person make the connection from mind to body or body to mind to get healthier?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's not something you can just say, well, here's what you have to do. You kind of have to do it in small ways. It's really sad because whenever you start talking about the mind, often I think people think that you're saying that, well, it's all in my mind, right? And that's the last thing that you're saying. But it's a very hard subject to broach with people, and I think you do it in small ways. That if you think that that's a factor where they need to be more positive or they need to start putting their mind to work for them, you mention it not right up front with them, but you just talk about it. You say, hey, you just, you don't look like you're buying what I'm saying. You look kind of down. You look distracted. Is there other stuff going on? You try to. Unfortunately, we don't get this kind of training in medical school. And orthopedics, we had a joke in med school that there were two ends of the spectrum. There were the orthopedic surgeons at one end, the mechanics, we just dealt with the body. And at the other end of the spectrum are the psychiatrists. We used to say treatment of the id by the odd. They were an odd bunch. And we thought they were not connected. But after a little bit of experience, you realize that you can't succeed as an orthopedic surgeon unless you're looking at this all the time, looking at the person, seeing what else you can do. I mean, Aramis is he the picture perfect story of what we were talking about? I mean, he put his mind to something. Look at him now, he's positive. And you'll say, well, he's a pro athlete, he's this and that. No, there's lessons from him and his story and you and your story, Pat, for every person. You don't have to be a pro athlete. You don't have to be a marathon runner to get all the benefits of health. You don't have to be a pro athlete to put your mind to work for you. But you learn from these people. Like I learned from treating high-level athletes, and dancers are amazing that way. They're the toughest athletes I've ever worked with. These ballerinas are unbelievable. They're fit, they're motivated, they're strong. The odds are against them ever getting a job, yet they push. And Aramis seems like that same kind of kid. He saw at one point in his life where, maybe he didn't have every skill that all these other kids had naturally, but look where he is. So not hard. I mean, not easy to do, but you have to deal with it. And some patients are just not open for it. So you try again the next time.
Thank you, Dr. Nick. Diana, another question?
Yes, actually, this one's for Aramis. So have you made any changes to your diet, sleep, or other aspects of your life post-cancer?
Yeah, I try and eat a little bit less red meat. I don't know if my doctors have kind of just recommended that a little bit. Try and avoid a little less red meat. I try not to get too little sleep or anything like that. I mean, to be honest, I was living a pretty healthy life beforehand. I mean, my diet is pretty good. We have we have constant weight checks at every club that I'm at, and body fat percentage counts and everything like that. So you have to make sure that you're eating healthy and staying in shape. I'm not someone who can eat a box of Oreos and then it won't show the next day. That absolutely will. So I got to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. Yeah, I think it's really important though that you take care of your diet, especially towards the end of my cancer treatment when maybe in the last round or two of chemo, when I started feeling like I was getting closer to getting back to my to rehab process and playing and everything like that. I basically started to try and completely cut out any junk food that I was eating, anything like that, the comfort food basically that I had during my chemotherapy. I was trying to cut it out and just go purely on my old diet so that I could lose whatever fat that I had basically gained over the last 6 months, and then get back to training as fast as possible.
And Aramis, you talked about sufficient rest. What is your nightly rest? How many hours?
I try and get throughout the day. So if I might not get as much at night, but I'll definitely take a nap. I try and get between 8 to 9 hours of sleep.
Including the nap?
Including the nap, yeah. Maybe half an hour of a nap, just to make sure I get a good amount.
Beautiful.
Aramis,
Diana?
I have
Oh,
one.
go ahead, Nick.
Aramis, so you had a great team. Joe Zarrett, phenomenal. And it was Dr. Christy Weber, right, at Penn, oncologist, phenomenal. In fact, she was the first female president ever. There aren't many female orthopedic surgeons out there, but she was president of the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons recently, which is monumental kind of thing. But just to kind of piggyback on the last question I had, when you were given the okay to go out, what was that first rep like, or the first attempt to run? I mean, you kind of hit on it that it wasn't there. So how did you know that you could keep going? I mean, you must have been totally frustrated. The first rep, the first run, the first.
Oh yeah. So like when I first came out of the surgery, I was just on crutches. I could not walk at all on the leg. There was absolutely no muscle there to support anything. It was not working. If I flexed one quad, it would show. If I flexed the other leg, there was nothing. There was absolutely no muscle. So it was an extremely frustrating process. When I finally got the okay to start jogging from Joe, it was painful. Like, to be honest, it was painful and it was frustrating, but the whole point, nothing's easy. So I wasn't expecting it to be, once I had accepted the kind of pain that I was going through, it's like, all right, so this is what I have to deal with. Now you just got to push through it. And there were a couple of moments, towards the last week or two before I was coming back here when, I was experiencing some pain. And of course you kind of have like a couple thoughts in your head, but at the same time, it's like, if you can overcome those thoughts, then it's pretty easy.
Diana?
We actually do have one more question I'd like to share. I think this is going to be for you, Dr. Nick, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. Since Aramis is he's a professional athlete, so he pays attention to his legs, especially as a soccer player, or footballer. And for the average person, how apparent would this abnormality be for them? And would they necessarily go to their doctor? In your experience, what do you see in this?
It's a great question. And, a lot of times you brush off the way he did originally. You got an ache. Okay, I might have pulled a muscle. I might have done this. But again, your body, pain is a message. Pain is a signal. Your body's trying to tell you something. Sometimes it's nothing, right? It could be minor. You could have something terrible and not even know it. Or you could have a lot of pain and it could be a minor issue. We see kids that have achy kneecaps that are driving them crazy. It's not a serious problem. So the key take-home message here is that if you're having pain that's persisting, that's limiting you in any way, interfering, especially pain at rest, or if you're trying to sleep at night and you can't pain, you got to get it checked. You got to have a diagnosis. And sometimes you don't have that diagnosis right away, but usually you can get to the bottom of it and you can get a second opinion if you need to. But pain is never normal. Sometimes you have to accept it. Sometimes it's a condition. I have certain conditions that hurt every day and I know they're not serious and I know how to work around them and they're never going to stop me. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't get it checked out. So everyone, pro athlete or not, and the pro athletes, you know, it's the best and the worst of care. Sometimes they have the best doctors around them all the time, but a lot of times you're willing to brush stuff off that, oh, it's only a bruise, it's only a strain. And they don't, you know, you don't take it as serious. You're in a training room, you don't have the x-ray sometimes. So, you know, everyone should get the care, top-notch care, no matter who you are, and have a diagnosis. Get things checked. Like Pat told me, go get things checked.
You brought it full circle, Dr. Nick. Thank you. And I have one more question for Aramis. Aramis, how was your family involved in your cancer treatment plan?
My family was very involved. My mom was taking care of pretty much anything I needed in terms of food and you know, making sure I was extremely comfortable around the house. You know, the one of the worst things about having cancer in the year like what we just had was I'm absolutely not allowed to be in contact with anyone. So you know, I could maybe see some friends, you know, a couple times a week from a distance, and that's about it. So she tried to make it as comfortable as possible, and my dad was really leading the charge, making sure all of the doctors, you know, understood what's going on, making sure he was doing extra research to see were there any additional treatments I could be doing, any second opinions I could be getting. So they were extremely helpful. And my little brother would walk my dog if I was feeling too sick, you know, one of the days after chemo or something like that. So they were super helpful.
And how did you help to alleviate their mental stress? Because you being so mentally tough, it may have been harder on them than you.
Well, to be honest, that's what I've been saying to a lot of people, is that I think it was probably tougher for them than it was for me, because, you know, for me, I just feel kind of like the maybe some toxic effects from chemo, maybe some frustration from not being able to see anybody or anything like that. But for them, you know, they're worrying about potentially, you know, losing a family member or something like that. So, you know, I just tried to stay upbeat all the time. You know, the biggest thing was I tried to not show any damage from any of the chemo or anything like that on me. So, you know, maybe a day or two afterwards, of course, I'd be a little bit weaker or something like that. But, you know, I'd try 3-4 days after my chemo treatments to already be in the gym, you know, doing pull-ups, doing biking, whatever I could be doing, just so that they could see kind of, yeah.
I'm telling you, you are our poster child, our poster athlete for Healed. I want your poster hanging at ACS headquarters. And you know what? Our intention, our primary intention here is to lessen the suffering of cancer patients, survivors, and their loved ones, and everyone who's been touched, and that they all live a healthier life in the present moment. So everything, Dr. Nick, you've talked about, everything, Aramis, you've talked about, has been about being present, being mindful of the challenge in the present moment, allowing your mind and body to interact, interconnect as one, like that green bead, as one, so that you can live a healthier life now. Not think about living a healthier life, but allow a healthier life to be lived through you. And I want to say, Dr. Nick Danubli, an orthopedic surgeon, and Aramis Kozine, is that it right? Kozine, our Denmark professional footballer. I want to thank you so much for your time, energy, passion, and insights today. And if you want to continue any discussion with ACS Healed, go to our Facebook page, ACS Healed. And if you haven't joined, please go to acshealed.com. And I'd like to end with a prayer. And this is my present moment prayer, ladies and gentlemen. I shared it the first week. I forgot last week. And all I want to do is say thank you. Thank you for the grace in helping me welcome what is happening in the present moment. In the present moment. It takes grace for us to be able to handle what is happening, the challenges in the present moment, whether you have cancer or not. And so just extend a giant thank you to you all, and peace. See you next week.